All right. Good morning, everybody. I see our attendee list starting to slow down as people join and get in. So we'll give it just 30 more seconds here. If we haven't already, let us know if your team salt to your team sweet. Changing it up from the usual "where is everyone located" question. Okay. Awesome. Let's go ahead and get started. So good early morning or afternoon, wherever you are in the country. If you don't know me, my name is Kirsten Rosso. I'm the Customer Marketing Manager here at Hireology. Thank you for joining us today for our first Customer Connect of 2024. I'm excited to be here to moderate today's presentation. We've got a lot of exciting topics to discuss today. So first, we're going to hear from our CEO, Adam Robinson. He's going to talk about our one-of-a-kind annual survey of recruiters and HR leaders. This surveys hotels, healthcare facilities, automotive dealerships, and we're going to outline key recruiting and retention trends for the year ahead. Then we will hear from Kim and Julie. Kim and Julie are leaders in our customer success and product marketing teams, and they'll dig into the elements of a great interview process. They're going to discuss best practices around speed, process, and tooling. We're also going to feature a realistic implementation of these recommendations and offer an exclusive access to additional templates and resources. So we're really excited. We will have a formal Q&A at the end, but I'll keep an eye on the chat as well as the question and answer tool here in Zoom. So if you type anything out during the conversation, we may address it during the presentations, or we might save it to the end. So just stay tuned, but all questions will, of course, be answered. But with that, let's go ahead and get started, and I'll pass it to Adam.
Great. Thanks so much. It is great to be here with everybody. Let me just get my screen set up here. All right. So nice to be here with everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're always so excited to get everyone together here to preview our view on the industry, some of the great things that are happening, of course, in our technology and platform, and taking you through some real-life examples of folks having success with all of those things. So I'm excited to talk to you today in over the next 40 minutes or so to cover some new employer research data that we have recently launched at Hireology and talk about the opportunities that we feel are presented to you as a result of having awareness or understanding of what's going on in the market right now. So before we get started, a little bit about the research. Many of you are familiar with this. In December of 2023, we surveyed hundreds of employees within the industries we typically work with who sit in the HR leadership seat across automotive retail, across senior care, and across the hotel and hospitality industry. And survey questions touched on the following themes. First, what hiring challenges do you perceive top of mind in 2024? Second, how quickly has your hiring process been moving? Is it going slower or faster than 23? Third, where are the best channels you're finding for applicants and hires? And then fourth, where do you get stuck? Where in the process do you find bottlenecks? And so we're going to focus on these topics and then have some discussion. And of course, AI is on everyone's minds, and I'm going to touch a little bit on that. So let's dig into some key themes from the results. So the first theme I want to dig into is just how overarching today's hiring challenges are as it relates to your industries. Overall, despite a cooling job market, we're finding that businesses hiring skilled hourly labor, by and large, what all the folks here, all of you are focused on, they're still finding the climate from a hiring perspective to be incredibly challenging. So 9 out of 10 respondents to this survey across your industries noted that hiring remains a serious challenge for their business today. Now, much of the reason behind this is the same story that you've heard me tell if you've attended these events in the past. Demand in sectors like automotive retail, healthcare, and hospitality are always going to be high. Demand will always be high. In fact, you've heard me say many times over the years, if you think it's going to get easier, it is never going to get easier. We are fighting against a demographic current where we're going to see fewer people entering these industries and fewer people entering the workforce over the coming decade. So people People need more healthcare than they've ever needed. They're buying as many cars as they've ever bought. They're getting them serviced at higher levels than ever before. Our hotels are reaching pre-COVID occupancy levels. But at the same time, workers today are less likely to have an interest in these jobs for a variety of reasons. First, there is a perception issue that the work in our industries is demanding and doesn't offer the benefits that they're looking for, principally related around flexibility. And this reputation issue is certainly not new, but it is getting more challenging as younger generations continue to make up more of the workforce. And with fewer people interested in this kind of work, you then end up with the supply and demand issue being exacerbated, which, making the people who are interested in these career paths in very, very high demand, and they have expectations for fast and efficient hiring processes. And so solving this range of challenges is really what we're going to get into today. So it's also worth noting that most respondents reported that hiring is more of a challenge than it was a year ago, indicating that this problem, which began really in earnest in 2021 as the economy opened back up, is not letting up. So all in all, if you're feeling the struggle still when it comes to hiring and you're wondering if it's just you, it's not. Everyone in these sectors really struggling when it comes to hiring, which is, I think why we're all here today. So the silver lining is that this presents a real opportunity for you to stand out by doing things a bit differently than the rest of your competition. So let's dig into some of those things. So to take a deeper run at it, exactly which roles are the businesses we surveyed struggling with the most? If you operate in these verticals, you probably could have guessed this. 60% of all dealership respondents noted that service technicians are the hardest to hire. In healthcare, 45% said that CNAs are the most challenging to find, with about 20% saying the same for RNs. And in hotels, the challenge is pretty widespread across the board, but the number one answer was housekeepers at about 26%. The second most common answer from our hotel customers was food and beverage workers. When we dug deeper into exactly why businesses are struggling so badly to hire for these critical roles, you'll see here across the board, ghosting and applicant quality topped the list. In years past, when we've done this survey, applicant volume typically took the top spot, but this year the narrative has shifted. So I think what we're seeing is that in the years immediately following the pandemic, there was simply a shortage of workers, full stop. This year, we're seeing more people return to the workforce given inflation. And so volume isn't as much as a concern for all of you as it used to be. The issue is people lacking the right skills and experience to perform these highly skilled jobs that are in the most demand. And so on top of that, people who are looking for work in these sectors still have the upper hand because, of course, they have plenty of options for work. This is what makes ghosting so prevalent. So if you're not creating an engaging experience for job seekers, they can and will and do drop out and pursue opportunities with employers who just move faster and have it more tied together. So now that we've outlined the challenges we're seeing across the board, I want to dig into some areas where there are opportunities for you to stand out and gain a competitive advantage. And the first is with job design. What exactly are you offering job seekers and how are you marketing that opportunity? Let's take a look at what the survey respondents said, because if we're going to design a job around what the market needs, if we're building a product to deliver to the market that the market wants, we need to understand what those things are. So overall, survey respondents across all three industries of focus are offering a good range of benefits across the board with training and mentorship programs, flexibility, great workplace culture, and career pathing standing out. So this should serve as a baseline for you when designing your jobs and determining which benefits to offer and highlight. You want to make sure you're not only on par with what your competitors are offering, but that you're also finding a way to stand out and offering something extra that they might not find anywhere in other markets or inside your market. And so whether that's additional flexibility in scheduling or unique training programs or career pathing. But of course, it's also important that what you offer aligns with what candidates want to. So let's take a look at that. In the applicant survey we conducted, we found that for the most part, job seekers across all of your industries are looking for many of the same benefits employers we surveyed are all offering, including flexibility, career growth, and culture. And most would be willing to forego higher pay for these types of perks. So if you're not offering some of the benefits, tangible or intangible, you see here that are really important to your target audience, you are going to lose more than you should to competitors, because we know from the survey that your competitors are offering many of these things. Many employers today might feel that just raising wages is the best way to get the best talent, but when you look at survey results, the reality is people just want to work the way that works best for them. And if you can meet them there with the benefits that they want while staying true to what your business needs, pay just isn't the lever that you think it is. So why does good job design matter? Why do we need to get this right in order to chip away at the challenges from the earlier slides? Well, really for two reasons. Number one is applicant volume. Good job design will capture the attention of more job seekers who are sifting through hundreds of options for work and are looking to quickly identify openings that meet their needs and match their skills. And applicant quality. Good job design will also help you attract people with the right skill sets and experience to apply to your jobs, ultimately helping you increase your applicant to candidate ratio and your candidate to hire ratio. Those are two really important efficiency metrics. If you have far too many low quality applicants, you're spending a whole lot of time, as you probably well know, trying to get down to a qualified candidate. And if you can't get that candidate to hire ratio where it needs to be, it's all for naught. You do all this work and you can't get them in the door. The next opportunity I want to dig into is talent sourcing. Where are your competitors finding top talent? Where do job seekers go to look for work? Let's take a closer look. When we asked respondents to select all of the sourcing channels they use, it's clear that most recruiting teams across industries are casting a wide net and using a good mix of different sources to reach top talent, including employee referral programs, job boards, and relationships with local schools. Now, what this tells us is that a multi-channel sourcing strategy is the norm today when it comes to finding hard-to-reach skilled talent, and is something that you absolutely need to do in order to remain competitive in these industries. It's not just posting jobs on the internet. You've got to be everywhere. But what sources actually perform the best? We followed up with respondents to identify where they're driving the most eventual hires. One interesting finding is that employee referral programs take the number 1 or 2 spot across all verticals, either outpacing or coming in second to paid job boards. So what this tells us is there is a quality versus quantity situation at play. If you want to drive sheer volume of candidates, job boards are absolutely where you want to be. But if you're looking to maximize quality while driving quantity, you might want to prioritize referrals and consider leveraging paid job board opportunities to fill in gaps, as opposed to just relying on organic job post syndication alone. So let's compare what we just talked about to what the job seekers tell us. Job boards like Indeed are by far the most popular channel for job seekers. Makes sense? They make it very, very easy to apply to lots of jobs with one click, followed by LinkedIn, and then third, employer career sites. I think the fact that employer career sites are so commonly used among job seekers just shows that they're doing their due diligence in researching you before applying to your jobs, underscoring the need for a quality career site with great employment branding. The most common path we find, someone finds a job posted out there somewhere online, they immediately go to that employer's career site and they start to do their research. If they like what they read, then they go back and apply, right? So you want to audit your employment brand to make sure you're putting your best foot forward. It's also worth noting that while only about 30% of job seekers said that they actively network to look for work, their responses to several additional questions imply otherwise. Overall, most job seekers are open to looking for work via existing relationships that they have. Most say they would return to a company that they worked for in the past, and most would be open to working for a company they applied to in the past, but to a job for which they weren't hired at the time. And even more say they would refer a friend to an open role at a previous employer. All this is to say that networking and relationship building can come in many shapes and sizes, and this can be a surprisingly effective way to find talent. So never burn bridges with people you've engaged with in the past, whether that's former employees, job applicants, or finalists from previous roles. You should consider this pool of talent a source on its own that you can build relationships with and pull from at any time. Here at Hireology, we call that talent rediscovery, and this is a topic and concept you're going to be hearing a lot about from us in the future. So based on the sourcing data we have, a few opportunities stand out. First, referrals. Modernize your employee referral program, and you will get more out of it. What I mean by this is invest in tools that make it easier to communicate and message your open roles and the referral bonus payouts across your organization, and make it as easy as possible for people to participate. If any of you are using Hireology referrals today, you'll know how easy it is for our platform so that people can quickly submit referrals via chatbot, ultimately increasing participation in driving more referral pipeline. Second, get more out of Indeed. They are far and away the majority of applicant volume in the job board category. So consider Indeed sponsorships when you need to. Data shows that sponsored jobs on Indeed are more likely to result in a hire, and they're more likely to be filled faster. And of course, if you aren't already taking advantage of this, you can easily manage your Indeed job ad spend directly inside your Hireology account. You'll have access to all the tools you have if you go there direct due to the strong partnership we have with our friends at Indeed. Third, talent relationships. Like I just mentioned on the last slide, leverage your existing talent database. This is talent rediscovery. Nurture relationships you've built over time by staying in touch and engaging folks at some regular cadence every so often, keeping your company top of mind for them should a role open up. Remember, recruiting is a sales and marketing process. We have to continually check in with people so that when they're considering making a move, we're the first phone call, email, or text that they send. Double down on what's working. It's also important to note that none of this is one size fits all. You've got to start tracking sourcing channels you're already working and identify what's working best for you and what's just not performing versus the time and cost to be in those markets. So from there, you can double down on the sources that do drive the right combination of applicant quality and hires, and back away from more costly channels from a per hire standpoint that just aren't getting you the results that you want. The next opportunity we found from this year's survey is all around speed. So moving faster can and will help you hire better quality talent. We asked survey respondents, how fast on average are you responding to initial applicants when they apply? And across all of the industries here on this webinar, we saw a pretty big range in timing. In healthcare, nearly 9 in 10 respondents said they respond to applicants within 2 days on average, with about half indicating that they respond same day. In automotive, about 2/3 of respondents say they're responding to applicants within 2 days, but when we look at hotels, only about half are moving this fast. So for those of you in automotive and healthcare, these fast response times are really table stakes. And if you're not responding within 2 days, chances are you're missing out on candidates who are just gone by the time you reach out. In hospitality and hotels, this presents a real opportunity for you to get ahead. So find ways, either through our technology or process improvements internally, to get that response time down. And you're going to have a leg up on 50% of your competitors that just don't move this fast. I mean, let's say that again. For our friends from the hotel industry on this call, your markets move slower from an applicant response standpoint. You can build days of competitive advantage just focusing on responding and moving faster. This is a window to create competitive advantage. And I really want to push you to take full advantage of that. And when it comes to overall hiring speed, the numbers are a bit closer across the three industries that we surveyed. About 3 in 4 healthcare facilities, senior care facilities specifically, and hotels say they're hiring, start to finish in about 2 weeks or less. About 60% of automotive dealerships said 2 weeks or less. So again, same story. If you're not moving this quickly and you're not investing in tools and process to make it happen, you're likely missing out on top talent that's going to work for someone who was just more responsive. And our applicant survey that I mentioned earlier proves this. About 30% of respondents across all of these verticals said they expect to be interviewed, not just responded to, but interviewed within 48 hours of applying to a job, while 55% say they want an interview to happen within 3 days. So that means your initial response time needs to be same day at the very least, if the goal is meeting your applicant customers' expectations. It's not just beating the benchmarks for other employers. Your job seeker wants to be interviewing within 48 hours of an application. And so if that's your North Star, you can really feel the urgency to move quickly. Why does this matter? Well, 48% of job respondents said they are likely to ghost, not show up, just bow out of the process with no notice if their expectations for timing aren't met. So you could be losing half of your top applicants if you're not getting interviews set up in that 2-day window. And as I'm sure you all know, this is a topic we actually have teed up to discuss much more in depth in the next session with Kim and Julie. And I know when you hear from your customer success manager at Hireology, or you're looking at your business reviews or the metrics that we send, all of these speed metrics are the things that we're really highlighting. Why? Because it really matters and makes a difference. And just to add more data to prove the need for speed, 61% of the job seekers we surveyed last year said they accepted the first offer they received in their most recent job search. The first offer, 61%, which speaks to the importance of overall hiring speed. So even if you respond right away with great candidate when they first apply, you have to keep them engaged and move fast and make the first offer, because chances are 61% of the time anyway, they get another offer that meets their needs, they're going to take it. So you can't be second to the party. You've got to be first. You've got to be fast to review, fast to set up an interview, fast to make an offer. 1 day review time, 2 days to interview, at least inside of 2 weeks to offer, as fast as you can make it. Those are the metrics that lead to success. So what is slowing employers down? We can have these aspirations, but what are the bottlenecks that lead to slow-moving processes in candidate ghosting? When broken down by industry, you'll see some similarities. Collecting paperwork, everyone's favorite job responsibility, collecting paperwork, keeping track of candidates and scheduling interviews show up prominently across all of your industries. And of course, all three of these bottlenecks are issues that you can solve with our product to automate these processes, to keep them moving efficiently, and ultimately to keep top candidates engaged, which is something we're going to dig into further in our product Backstage Pass. Just know, if you're not leveraging the tools that we offer, that you have in your subscription to address these top 3 needs, they're all there for you to take advantage of. We really want to make sure you know where they are, how to use them, and what they can do for you. And finally, before I pass the mic, I wanted to touch on a topic I know has been top of mind for almost anyone, no matter what role or industry you're in, unless you've been living under a rock. Artificial intelligence is all anyone's talking about. And it is not hype. It is the real deal. And it's going to really change the profession of the HR leader or talent acquisition leader in organizations. And I want to spend a minute to talk about it. We asked several questions around comfortability with and understanding of artificial intelligence in our survey, and found that while AI is a buzzword people are familiar with, most are not comfortable with it just yet as it relates to recruitment. And I think this is perfectly okay. It makes sense to me. Concept is still vague, it's new, and there really hasn't been much practical use cases of AI in a recruitment sense to hit the market. but I am telling you that is going to change, and that change is going to be measured in months and weeks, not months and years. It is going to accelerate. And as was the case, I remember back 10 years ago when version 1 of our product was launched, we were really imploring all of you to take advantage of web-based automation, better career sites, text messaging, all of those things, to get a leg up on the market that just hadn't made the conversion. Now, all of those things are, of course, table stakes. AI is the next frontier, where if you aspire to really gain competitive advantage and deliver value to your organization, I mean outsized value, by addressing talent shortages faster, filling more roles, filling a higher percentage of your roles, filling them faster, doing it for less time and effort, artificial intelligence is going to be your best friend. And we are thinking all day, every day. In fact, I've dedicated an entire R&D team around making sure we are delivering to you the absolute cutting edge, yet practical tooling that will help you do your jobs more effectively. We asked respondents to list where they feel AI could play a role in recruitment. Same story applies. Most people just don't know. And while others listed none of the above, which tells you no one is really doing this yet. For all the hype and buzz, we're not even to early adoption yet. I mean, we are really on the front edge with this stuff. But that's exciting because there's an opportunity for all of you here. The one answer that did stand out across the most industry respondents is writing job descriptions, which I think is a good one to start with as an example. So free resources like ChatGPT can be a great tool to experiment with when it comes to writing better job descriptions and writing them quickly. So based on public data that trained its model, ChatGPT knows what goes into a job description that will be a high-performing marketing document, if you will, across all of your verticals, and can help you craft one that works. All you have to do is input the right information, and of course, you test, iterate, and tweak until you land on a draft that works for you. So the goal here is not to replace us as professionals, but to just help you move faster, work smarter, and just get more out of the time you spend every single day. So content is really the first area where ChatGPT is being picked up across the HR profession in these industries. Of course, I'd be remiss without addressing a really important topic as it relates to AI and recruitment, and that's bias. Recruiting is already an area that's rooted in human biases, right? There's, not a week goes by you don't hear about a lawsuit related to bias in the hiring process here in the United States. And there's, of course, a chance that artificial intelligence, which are models ultimately built on pre-existing data, historical data, there's a chance AI can actually make this bias issue worse by learning from data sets that have inherent biases in them. And of course, most survey respondents are aware of this and share this concern. No one wants to, continue to propagate bias in the hiring process, and no one wants to get sued. Both of those things are bad. I will say that as the conversations around AI become more prominent in the recruiting space, it's always important to remember that ChatGPT and other AI tools should always be used for efficiency. Now, this is an opinion, right? Not a fact. My opinion, and certainly the stance of Hireology and what we're going to build is that AI is about efficiency in this profession, not decision making. So to ensure fairness and transparency, a level of human involvement is and always will be essential. In fact, I would say if AI, the way I think about AI is if I can leverage tooling to take an hour out of administration from myself, my team, or my managers, and give them back an hour to spend doing evaluations of talent, like really using their time to make good choices, you're winning, right? So that's our posture here at Hireology. We will be helping you in the coming months take administrative cost, time, and add efficiency back, and to take that into the hiring process and just give you more time back in the day so that you and your hiring teams can spend more time with people making assessments and decisions. And so while you can conduct data audits and work to improve, ultimately, whatever algorithms you're using in your AI tooling. At Hireology, we are never going to we're never going to make hiring decisions automatic. We're not going to build tools that tell you who to hire. For all the reasons stated above. Number one, it probably violates 9,000 labor laws. Number two, these models aren't built to make these kinds of decisions in a way that's free of bias. And so we're going to be focused on efficiency and giving you time back and let you do what you do so best, which is make great hires for your organization. So in general, our advice for AI moving forward is it has the potential to really help you move faster and work smarter. Here are some ways that you can get started with AI today and get a head start as AI continues to make an impact on the industry. Number one, just play with it. Experiment with public resources like ChatGPT. Get comfortable with it. Use it to write job descriptions or internal comms, or even emails to candidates. Play around with it. Learn how to master the prompting and the input so that you get what you're looking for. Because I'll tell you, all of that tooling is going to move from publicly available ChatGPT-like tooling into your Hireology account. All of that's coming in-house. And so you want to invest in forward-thinking HR tech. And this is, of course, where I'm plugging Hireology. But leveraging tools like ours is what's going to help you get ahead and get more efficient and more productive as AI becomes more common in the HR space. So at Hireology, we are always looking for ways to introduce AI into our platform. Today, it can help you write job descriptions. In the coming months, it's going to be a completely re-architected and faster search. You're going to see this again measured in weeks and months, not months and years. And this stuff is going to be coming at you fast and furious. So just start playing with it and get comfortable because in working with us, you're going to have access to these tools in the very near future. And you want to get your data in order. AI has the potential to revolutionize the administration of the hiring process, but for it to be effective, it's got to be trained on complete and accurate data. That means every applicant, candidate in your database has to have a complete profile. And with every rejected candidate, interview, or hire, it's got to be logged in the system with as much information as possible. With a clean database, you're able to leverage time-saving tools and these administrative automation engines that are coming, including job description writers down the line. And we were thinking really deeply about how to make it easier to complete the entirety of the hiring process from start to finish within the system so you don't feel the need to bounce out to do something manual outside the system and come back in. We are laser focused on making it as automated from an administrative standpoint as possible so that is clean, so that when AI, writ large is really available to you, you're ready to take advantage of it because you've been following the process. And so finally, like I mentioned on the last slide, always remember to leverage AI for efficiency rather than decision-making. So if someone asks you, hey, what did we learn today about AI? AI is a tool for efficiency in the hiring process. It is not a tool for decision-making in the hiring process. I want you to think about efficiency, not decision-making. And if the owner, president, CEO of your business says, what are we going to do with AI in recruiting? We're going to use it to drive efficiency. We're not going to use it to make decisions because that's the wrong use. Therein is my opinion on the matter. So to summarize, before I pass the mic back to Kirsten, number one, skilled labor, supply and demand imbalance continues to challenge businesses and will continue to do so beyond our working years. This is a forever issue in our markets. There are opportunities to stand out with better job design and sourcing diversification. Candidate engagement is critical to winning hires, but it hinges on speed and automation, which we're going to touch on more in the next session. And then finally, AI represents an opportunity to get ahead if used right. You're going to start seeing a lot of tooling get released. Now is the time to get familiar with how it works. Get onto ChatGPT for free. Use their 3.5 model. You don't have to pay for 4 to start to feel comfortable with it. And just get your feet wet. Get comfortable. But it's an exciting topic you're going to be hearing from me and from Hireology a lot about in the coming months. And with that, I want to hand it back over to Kirsten, Kim, and Julie to kick off our product Backstage Pass, where we'll dig into the interviewing process and best practices that I touched on earlier, including what goes on when you're doing a great interview, what goes into it, what makes for a great interview, why it's important to get interviewing right, and how Hireology can help you automate the process and speed it up to reduce your ghosting problem. So thanks for having me here, Kirsten. It's always fun to see everybody. Thanks so much for working with us. And I look forward to a great rest of the program. Kirsten, back to you.
Great. Thanks, Adam. All right, awesome. So we heard a lot of stats there, and you will get this presentation after. I know there was a question about the recording too. You'll get the recording and the presentation, of course. But I want to highlight a couple that I think really lend nicely to the conversation Julie and Kim are about to have. About 30% of respondents across all three industries said that they expect to be interviewed, not just responded to, but interviewed within 48 hours of applying to a job, while a total of 55% say they want to be interviewed, the interview to happen within 3 days. So that's not like, oh, I call them in a day or two. Like they want to be on the phone with you or in front of you, having an actual interview that quickly. So scheduling interviews, of course, slows down the process, but because applicants accept the first offer, you really have to make sure that you're interviewing them fast, efficient, and that your process is repeatable, of course. So let's go ahead and bring in Julie Lombardo, our VP of Customer Success, and Kim Nauer, our Product Marketing Lead. They're going to go dive deeper into some thought leadership and tooling that's going to support interview efficiency.
Great. Thank you, Kirsten. So I think it goes without saying that interviews are an important part of the hiring process, right? You have to talk to the candidates to truly know if they will be a good fit or not for your organization. So today we're going to focus on the importance of those interviews and making them a great experience for everyone involved. Let's also face it, it can be just as nerve-wracking for the interviewer who has to make the ultimate decision, just as much as the candidate on the other end vying for that job. So interviews are not just about finding top talent. It's also about keeping them excited about joining your team and reducing the no-shows. We'll walk you through each phase of the interview process, giving you some practical tips along the way, and then, of course, show you how you can accomplish some of these goals using your Hireology platform. So before the interview even takes place, there are steps that you and your hiring team need to take in order to attract and hire the best talent possible. First, you want to think about your ideal candidate. This should include a mix of your culture at your organization and the key competencies that are ultimately essential for success in the role. Next, you'll want to set realistic expectations for applicant selection. So determine which requirements and experience are absolutely necessary for the role and be flexible with the rest. There will never be a candidate that meets every single requirement that you've laid out. So it's important to take a step back and understand where you're willing to flex a little bit with the background required to ultimately be successful in that role. Next up, you'll want to create a standard interview procedure. So ensure that all of your locations are hiring the same quality of candidate by creating a standardized interview procedure for all of your hiring managers to follow. Consistency is key. That's ultimately why Hireology is here, to help you with that consistency and allows your team to even the playing field for anyone and everyone that you may speak with. So finally, save some time by using tools to make the interview process easier. And on the next slide, we'll actually start to dive deeper into 3 key areas. So as Adam just discussed, a top hiring concern is candidate quality. One way to get better quality is to take the time to really define the type of person who would be successful. Your job descriptions are more than just that laundry list of qualifications. They are that first point of contact for potential candidates. In the competitive landscape of talent shortages and relying on generic job descriptions can ultimately backfire on you. So it's crucial to connect with the right people right from the start. Understanding your ideal candidate. So if you find it challenging to attract the right talent, it may indicate a lack of clarity regarding your ideal candidate. Your employees need to both have the technical expertise and the soft skills, whether it's fixing vehicles or caring for patients or just engaging with customers. Next, you'll want to incorporate some company culture. Everyone wants to join an organization that they ultimately enjoy working for. So consider your org's unique culture when crafting those job descriptions. Use uplifting and encouraging language to convey the teamwork and positive atmosphere that sets you apart from the guy down the street. This approach ensures that you attract candidates who not only have the necessary skills, but also align with your company values. And lastly, make sure that you're defining those competencies. So you need to define those key competencies of the role that you're hiring for. So for instance, if a technician position requires they are ASE certified or be willing to complete that ASE certification within a specified time frame. Additionally, showcasing any apprenticeship or internship programs you offer can also broaden your talent pool effectively. Job descriptions should be strategic tools for your recruitment way before you start even interviewing applicants. So the good news is, and Adam touched on this pretty deeply, you can use AI to help write job descriptions. Our AI assistant Beaker is a really great way to quickly get started, and customers who leverage the tool within our platform to generate their job descriptions, open jobs approximately 1.3 times faster compared to customers who don't leverage automation. And next up, we'll actually walk you through a little bit of what this looks like.
Yeah, so I would like to introduce you to Beaker, your best friend, right? As Adam mentioned. So Beaker really does help with those efficiencies, right? So AI can help you create those efficiencies by helping you create those job descriptions for positions you're hiring for. So we use ChatGPT to create those clear and concise job postings that are really optimized for search to attract those more qualified candidates. So to get started, you're just going to enter the details here. So when you're opening a job, things like, the title, the job family, salary, etc. And you'll click next. And on the next screen is where you can click the button here that says create with AI. And Hireology is going to automatically generate that prompt from ChatGPT. We've already done the hard work for you. You don't have to figure out the prompt. It's already done on the back end, but we'll pop that in. We will be pulling things from that job description. So we'll be using the information you've already provided to create that job description. And it's going to come out formatted. It's going to include sections like job summary, responsibilities, requirements, the comp and benefits, as well as an EEOC statement. But I'd say that this is a blueprint, right? You really want to add in some of the things that Julie mentioned, such as incorporating your company culture, your voice and tone of your brand, to have that really come through. AI is never going to be able to completely replace that, right? So by having those in your job description, it can really help you attract those high quality talent and help you craft some interview guides, which is what we're going to talk about in the next section here.
Great. And before the interview, it's always important to establish a solid procedure for conducting these sessions. And some of you may be asking why. To call it back from an earlier part of the presentation, consistency is always key. You can't afford for each hiring manager to create their own interview process. When they do that, and when they adhere to the same interview process, you have a uniform standard of candidate and interview experience for everyone to use as their baseline for hiring. You also want to determine how many interviews you'll conduct for each role. So a typical rule of thumb is to hold 2 interviews for those roles that are high in demand or that have higher turnover. What we also know from our data is that applicants want to be interviewed within 48 hours of applying. So time is of the essence, and you don't want to run the risk of losing out on top talent due to a shortfall in your process. One of our most effective ways to master the interview preparation is to use our interview guides to craft targeted and effective interview questions. These guides have multiple benefits, like removing bias from the process and making sure that all candidates are evaluated on the same criteria. And when you have multiple people speaking to the same candidate, it's important that you are making the best use of not only your time, but also the candidate's time as well. So using the interview guides will ensure that your hiring managers get the information they need without asking duplicate questions. One other big reason to use interview guides outside of consistency is, and we've talked a little bit about this, but eliminating bias from your process. You may also want to consider looking into corporate bias training for anyone who may conduct interviews or is in a management seat so that you can create a more diverse and inclusive workforce.
So as I mentioned, you can really use those job descriptions to help craft your interview questions. But let's take a look at how you can really use the interview guides in the platform. So these guides can include specific questions based on like the job family that's selected when opening a job. You can edit existing interview guides or create your own. So here you can see I'm updating it from the hiring steps at the top and then going to interview tab below. And then you can select create new interview. You can also get to the interview guides from when you're opening a job. So in this example, you've already entered all your job details, you've written your job description, hopefully with the help of AI, and then you can edit your hiring steps by clicking the edit icon right there so that you can open your interview guide and make any changes. So once you are on that interview creation page, you can really choose from a bank of questions that we have, or you can create your own. So the box on the left with that arrow, it really is about where you can enter your own question and click the add button. Right below that, you can search our database of questions. You can type in keywords, or you can filter to find the appropriate question. But if you find a question that is appropriate, you can just click those little green dots and then drag and drop that into the main interview question field. So once you've created all your questions, then you're good to go.
So we know based on conversations that we've had with all of you and based on some of the data that we see on our side, ghosting is a top concern across the board. There are a few tools within our platform that can help prevent no-shows and make interviews easier. So we'll dive a little bit into that next. So consider this approach, first of all, is rather than having a rigid interview schedule, you can empower candidates to select a time that aligns with their availability. Think like OpenTable. You know, I want to go to a restaurant. I put in my date, how many people I have, the time frame that I'm looking to go, and then I can select the one that is the best fit for me and what I'm looking to do for that night. This is a more customer-centric approach, not only that prioritizes your candidates' needs, but also enhances their overall experience with you. So you can use a calendar sync tool and eliminate the time-consuming back and forth typically associated with interview scheduling. So how you can reduce that time to hire and make your life easier in the process is by seamlessly syncing hiring manager schedules, whether it's Microsoft, Google, Apple calendars. You can easily populate availability and streamline the entire process straight from the platform. Another challenge you've likely also faced, sometimes candidates just simply forget. Some hiring managers have resorted to manually emailing reminders, but that puts a lot of the burden on you and your team. By automating these types of reminders, whether it's SMS or email, your applicants are more likely to show up, be prepared, and engaged. And you know that, and I think we all know what that means, a higher quality pool of candidates overall. Not only does interview scheduling help from a process perspective, but we're finding that customers who use interview scheduling also speed up their time to hire by about 2 days. And what I'm really excited to share with all of you are the results we've seen from customers that have started to leverage both our automated interview reminder feature and our interview scheduler feature. We find that customers who are using both of those have experienced exactly no ghosting. So allowing your candidates to pick a time that works best for them and sending an automated message reminding them can really help to speed up your process and further decrease the likelihood of a candidate ghosting you.
Yep, I love that. I ain't afraid of no ghosts. So I know we heard from Adam, right, that no-shows is such an issue, but we do have a way to combat that. And so I'm going to walk you through both of those right now. So interview scheduler and reminders. First, if we're looking at the interview scheduler, if you want to connect your calendar, you can do so by going to your name in the upper right-hand corner, clicking on My Info, and then scrolling down to the calendar sync section in the bottom left-hand corner there. You simply click the connect button, and you're going to be directed to select your email provider and follow the prompts to set it up. So you can see all of the various different email exchanges that we support there. And then whether or not you choose to sync your calendar, you can still schedule in our platform. So first, just make sure that the person that you are interviewing has been advanced from applicant to candidate. Then you'll click on the interview that you want to schedule. And then from there, once you've chosen the interviewer, we make it really easy to coordinate schedules. So just pick the dates and times, like Julie said, open table style, that you would like to offer that interview. And this is really where having calendar sync can be especially useful. So you can easily offer up times based on real-time availability. So when you send out the interview invitation to the candidates, they're going to get a link to choose their preferred time slot. If there's any changes to that availability, say you scheduled a meeting to your calendar, but the email to your candidate already went out, if you have calendar sync set up, it will automatically update that to reflect your new schedule. So there will be no overbooking there. But when that candidate selects the interview time, clicks confirm interview, they'll be presented with a success message and an email confirmation. And that email will include a calendar invitation. So the candidate can add that to their calendar, and the interviewer will also receive that email confirmation of the confirmed interview. So once the interview is scheduled, you can also view the default interview reminders. And this is a feature we launched about 2 months ago. But by default, a reminder is going to be sent out to your candidate about 1 hour prior to the interview starting. And it will go out via email and text. And you can also customize the reminder. So you can go to customize reminder and adjust the time frame. So you can see the different times there, 30 minutes, 4 hours before. You can go up to 48 hours before the interview. And then you can also determine the modality. So if you just want to send an email or a text, or if you want to send both, you can do that as well. But really this are great tools to really just streamline that interview process for you, make your life a little easier, but it's also a positive experience for the candidate. So at this point, right, you've gotten up to all your prep work before the interview is done and you're ready to move on to the next step.
Great. So it may come as a surprise, but a significant portion of the effort in the interview process overall takes place before and after the actual interview itself. The key to making a positive impression on candidates starts with organization first. When you're well prepared, you convey professionalism and respect for their time, setting the stage for a positive experience overall. So during the interview, your primary focus should be on getting to know the candidate and have a natural conversation while also seeking to understand their qualifications and fit for the role. It's also good to take notes that you can refer back to when you're trying to make a decision. Interviews can make people anxious and can have a significant impact on a candidate's future. The pressure can affect their performance. And here are some tips to build rapport and create a comfortable environment during the interview itself. First up, make sure to remind yourself of the information collected during the application process. Just have their resume or their application in front of you so you can avoid asking redundant information and convey an understanding of their past experience. Second, you'll want to welcome them warmly. If you're in person, a good handshake goes a long way with extending that welcome. If you're interviewing virtually, have your camera on and welcome them to the call with a smile and some enthusiasm. Third, avoid diving into questions right away. Help them settle in a little bit in what is usually an uncomfortable experience by keeping it casual. Fourth, don't end the interview until you've walked them through what to expect as far as next steps and what that communication will look like. For me, I'm usually the last person a candidate will speak to prior to making a decision. So I always make sure to end the interview with an explanation of where we're at in the process and when they can expect to hear back from our team. It can be as simple as, we still have a few other interviews lined up, but we expect to make a decision at some point early next week. I would expect to receive a call from our recruiter by Wednesday at the absolute latest. Next up, remember that this is a conversation most people are nervous about. Help ease their nerves by treating a candidate the same way that you would treat a family member or a friend. The next one is probably one of the hardest. Do less talking and more listening. This is an opportunity for them to really highlight their accomplishments and why they feel they would be a good fit for your team. Listen with intent and don't interrupt. Finally, it can be hard to steer the conversation when a candidate is excited. I think we've all been there before. A candidate is so excited to share their experience that they end up rambling for a bit. It can be a delicate balance, but you'll always want to make sure that you are still firmly in the driver's seat and can get to where you want to be without completely derailing their train of thought. So using interview guides doesn't mean you have to stick to a rigid script. Let's explore how you can make the interview process feel like a natural dialogue. You want to make sure that you're using a mix of questions to assess both technical and soft skills. And here are a few common interview questions that you may want to consider. First up, we have scenario-based. These questions typically look for answers based on what we call the STAR method: situation, task, action, and results, about a time that they came across an issue and ultimately solved for that. Second, personality. Use these questions to find out more about who the applicant is as a person and as a potential employee. See if they will fit and align with the job and also the workplace culture that you have. Third, skill. These questions center around the requirements for the job and will determine if the candidate has the knowledge and experience necessary to perform at or above expectations. And then lastly, behavior-based questions. These give you a glimpse into how the candidate would approach challenges on the job. So during the interview, your main job, besides getting to know the candidate, is to jot down your observations. These notes will be crucial for sharing with the hiring manager and others involved in the hiring process. And if you're not taking notes during that conversation, you may end up forgetting important details that could sway your decision between candidates. So it's always super important to jot down your thoughts in real time. This will help you make the best possible hiring decision for your team. And without these notes, it's tough to give comprehensive feedback to other hiring managers. So when it comes to evaluating candidates, more info is always better. So make sure to note down things like their attitude, their strengths, how well you think they'll fit within the role, and anything else that will ultimately help you make the final call.
Awesome. Yeah. I don't know about you, but when I interview somebody, I take so many notes. So let's talk about our interview notes. Really, it's like Julie said, it's really just great to go back and remind yourself why you liked, or maybe you didn't like, a particular candidate. And with every interview, just making sure that you go into that candidate's interview and taking all these notes is going to be so helpful to have those conversations about making a decision. So when I'm interviewing somebody over the phone, I like to have the interview guide up so I can type my notes directly in. If you're in person, that might be a little awkward. So I either write it on a notepad or I print out the interview notes so I can, put it in notes and then come back later and put it into the platform. Whatever works best for you. But each interview guide question really includes a field to type out a candidate's answer. So you can either use the notepad on the left-hand side, or you can put the notes to each specific question. When you start the interview, you also have the ability, again, to use the notepad within the interview. You can put it in each specific question. So it really helps you just keep track of your questions and answers, makes it easy to review when you have those multiple people interviewing candidates. You can all compare notes for the same questions. Regardless, you'll just want to come back here to review your notes so you can score the interview, which is what Julie's going to talk about next.
Well, so at this point, you're obviously so close. You've posted your job, you've collected a pool of applicants, you've reviewed their qualifications, and now you've interviewed a handful of folks that you believe will be the best fit for your organization. But you also need to consider following some post-interview best practices to make that best decision. Sometimes the hardest thing is to block some time for hiring administrative tasks, but you ultimately do want to dedicate time to catch up on evaluating candidates, communicating with candidates post-interview, and of course, taking what you've learned and your HR metrics and processes to optimize your interview process moving forward. So interview status can actually help you throughout the entire interview process. It can help you keep track of all sorts of things like confirming interview invites, if the interview is in process or completed, or if the candidate has flaked out or ghosted you. So keeping track of these statuses are handy when you're juggling multiple candidates, and plus you will have all the data you need to leverage later to analyze this particular hiring stage. So after an interview, you want to make sure to track the interview progress to reflect where the candidate is within your overall process. When you first sit down to evaluate and score candidates, you want to compare their answers in the interview to what your ideal candidate is that you envisioned earlier would say. So this keeps the evaluation fair since you're not directly comparing them to another candidate and can unbiasedly provide an interpretation of their skills, both technical and interpersonal. I always recommend scoring the interview immediately after you've conducted it when it's still fresh in your mind. After completing this initial evaluation, it's time to compare candidates to one another. At this step in your decision-making process, it gets down to brass tacks. Who has more of the skills you're looking for in the role? If you did your due diligence when comparing the individual to the ideal candidate, you have a pretty clear picture of what each candidate would bring to the position.
Awesome. Let's dive in then to our interview statuses and scoring. So here you can see, so the interview statuses is something that we recently updated in our app. It's something you really should be doing throughout the whole interview process just to keep track of each stage. So let's just say you had a no-show. You can select that and keep track of ghosting, for example. So maybe you notice that candidates from a specific job board or source is consistently ghosting. You can use that information later on when you're optimizing your process to maybe not focus your efforts there so much. You can also track candidate interview statuses. That's going to help you later on. So as Adam mentioned in his portion, candidate rediscovery. So, if you maybe have a candidate who you interviewed and perhaps didn't hire, you could go back to the well and nurture these candidates later on. And if you have the candidates' interview statuses saved, you can learn a lot of information from your past experience with that candidate. But to update the statuses in the platform, you want to navigate to the candidates tab and then interviews. You'll see the status updates there in the box on the left-hand side. Most of these are really self-explanatory. So canceled, completed, confirmed, in progress, and no-show. But for this example, I marked a candidate as completed, and you can see on this example, it was completed, but I didn't score my interview. So it lets you see at a glance where you are in the process and what still needs to be done. So to score an interview, you can see it here. I've got an example here with my notes that we talked about earlier. You can also score each answer to the question. So you can rank a candidate's answer from poor, okay, good, and excellent. If you don't want to score a specific question, maybe you forgot to ask it, you can skip that question. So once you've completed scoring and making all your notes, you can click finish and score. And then we're going to automatically determine a score based on your ranking. So the interview scores are going to help you indicate if a candidate is low risk, moderate risk, or high risk. You'll also see that visual representation of where the candidate falls on that scoring spectrum. And then you can take these notes and your scores from everybody who interviewed that person and have that discussion on who to consider moving on to the next step in your hiring process.
Right after the interview, it's a great idea to shoot the candidates a quick thank you message. Let them know that you appreciate their time and give them the heads up about what's coming next. And when you're ready to move on from a candidate, you want to make sure to provide closure and even feedback to those candidates that you ultimately did not move forward with. Make it a priority to let rejected candidates know that you're choosing not to move forward with them within 2 to 3 days, but be kind. You might want to stay in contact with those silver medalists down the road for future positions. And at the end of the day, they could also be a customer coming into your business as well. And if for some reason you have a delay in your decision, make sure to keep your top candidates warm and informed throughout the entire process. To make things easier for your team, you can use a customizable template, and we have some of those templates available that you can use, and we'll definitely send those out after the presentation as well. So at this point, you've navigated through all the interviews, you've made your decision. There's a few final steps to officially onboard them, whether it's background checks, reference checks, extending that offer letter. But from an interview perspective, you've followed the steps we've outlined. You've made a positive start to the candidate's journey within your company. So now that you've hired your great candidate, how do you replicate that going forward? It's important to periodically review your interview process to identify any bottlenecks, implement any new tools or features that may help streamline processes so that you can constantly improve. This will look different for everyone depending on your process, but here are some tips that we generally follow. First, analyze candidate sources. So make sure that you're diving into your hiring data to identify which sources are consistently yielding candidates who not only show up for the interviews, but also get hired. This insight can help you focus your recruitment efforts on the most effective channels. Second, optimize your interview rounds. Review your historical data to determine the optimal number of interview rounds needed to make successful hires. Streamlining interview process can reduce time to hire and improve that overall candidate experience. Next, streamline your scheduling. Utilize hiring data to identify bottlenecks in the interview scheduling process. Look for those opportunities to streamline communication and automate scheduling tasks to ensure that your candidates can schedule interviews faster and more efficiently. Next, train your hiring managers. Sounds simple, right? Assess your hiring data to identify any trends or patterns in interview scoring and evaluations. Determine if there are areas where hiring managers may benefit from some additional training or support to ensure that they're providing accurate and fair assessments of their candidates. And lastly, evaluate your interview scoring. So examine the correlation between interview scores and the hiring outcomes that you want to ensure that evaluations accurately reflect each candidate's suitability for the role. Use this data to constantly refine your scoring criteria and improve the accuracy of your candidate assessments. Be sure that you're analyzing your HR metrics on a regular basis to identify best recruitment ROI, your top source of quality candidates, and more to make better hiring decisions faster. So we know that interviews are a crucial part of the hiring process, and we want to walk you through how one of our customers has implemented those using some of the features within their interview experience. So next up, Cody Merrill, one of our senior customer success managers, will be has been working with one of our hospitality customers over the last year or so to help them optimize their hiring process to address some challenges within their workflows. So she'll be walking you through all of that from here and sharing some of those details with you.
Hi, everyone. I'm here to talk about the Opal collection. They are high-end hotel and resort properties that, as Julie mentioned, we've been partnered with since early 2023. You can see on the screen that their key metrics are really some of the best in class that we have. They've got an average of 98% of their applicants reviewed and an average time to hire of about 5 days. We're going to get into how they're driving these results and how interview tooling has really supported them in these efforts. Even before our partnership, Opal had a very great hiring process built out, and we were able to work with them to customize various tools in Hireology to help accommodate. Our partnership really gave them the opportunity to review their standards, update, and customize their content even further. This all started with creating interview guides. Opal Sands was the guinea pig for the Opal collection, and we helped them revamp their interview process when they joined Hireology. In tandem with corporate, Opal Sands helped test and fine-tune their interview guides for various roles, even working with individual department heads, such as their chef and their maintenance tech, to make sure that these questions and the overall interview guides worked for everyone at their properties. They built out extensive candidate communication templates, both SMS and email. They've invested that time to create these customized text and email templates to be able to adapt to some of our automations that we have in the system. They've tried to completely eliminate as many manual tasks as necessary while still maintaining communication and transparency for the candidate. No steps were missed. They even built communication around driving and parking logistics to get into their property. During implementation with Opal Sands, we created strict but flexible guidelines that encouraged all parties in the hiring process to be involved and actively engaged. After department heads or hiring managers review their new applications, they can push the person to candidate status in the Hireology system. Once they're in that candidate status, they are approved for an interview. meaning that they've met the baseline requirements for that role. From there, their HR team helps facilitate scheduling of the interviews from here. With all of the legwork that they put in ahead of time, the team is able to send timely and applicable communications via text messages to engage with these quality candidates and speed up their time to hire. A quote from Karina Parr, the HR director over at Opal Sands. They're in the business of selling their property to potential candidates, which is applicable to all of the Hireology customers, even our non-customers. If you're not the first to connect, if you are not the first to connect, you already have a disadvantage. So using texting as a feature really helps them get an edge on other employers and competitors in their area. Karina also noted that they send about 90% of their communications via text message, and they've been able to cut down their time to contact by about 2 days just by implementing text message communication. During the interview, their interview guides have been set up to really fuel and encourage conversation. They invested the resources and time to train their interviewers and hiring managers to work on developing a very personal connection with the applicant, really setting the stage for what their culture is like from their initial conversation. Taking this another step further, they have this scripted into their interview templates. So anyone who doesn't wear an HR hat or interviewing hat all the time is prompted to get curious and follow up on key questions that are listed in the interview guides, so they know what they should be looking for from an applicant's answer. When they're logging interviews, the GM requires that all interviews are to be logged or at least noted in the system, whether it's 1 or 2 interviews, depending on the role. And those need to be logged in order for the GM to approve a hire being made. While it is a more structured process, they do have a lot of flexibility with their hiring managers. So they do have the option of uploading their notes into the system instead of using Hireology 100% of the way through if they're not comfortable using a computer during their interview. After the interview, they are still not done communicating with their applicants. The attention to those candidates doesn't stop after they leave the building for their interview. The team's built out a handful of follow-up text messages to send out post-interview, as well as various templates to keep an applicant warm, reminding them of the next steps, and also re-engagement templates for some of those applicants that didn't make it through the process. Maybe they were the runner-up or whatever other reason there could be. They also implemented a text for applicants who did ghost during the interview, really giving them the benefit of the doubt, reaching back out to them to see if they are no longer interested or if something did come up. With this, Karina reported that she gets about a 90% response rate to these potential ghosting candidates. And for the applicants they are moving on with, they of course continue to re-engage with them, mostly via text message, keeping those lines of communication open to work towards a very successful onboarding, which is also done digitally. After the interview, Karina has been a huge proponent of adapting the tools to them. You can see that she shared that Hireology is most successful when you're using it to the fullest extent. They took the time to adopt and customize the tooling to their pace, demand, and culture, and this is how they've seen such great results. Speaking of those results, let's take a peek at some of Opal's stats. Since they've been partnering with Hireology and implementing these tactics, they've seen some great increases and decreases in their times to hire. The team is reaching out very quickly in less than 1 day and are doing so almost exclusively through text messaging through the system. They've completed over 2,700 interviews, and their average time to hire is about 5 days, having made over 500 hires since partnering with Hireology in early 2023. And they have seen an increase 30% of their hires since partnering with us. That's all I've got.
Thanks, Cody. So it takes me a minute to get my camera back on. Okay, awesome. So what we've heard today, candidate engagement really hinges on speed and quality, and that AI can give you a big opportunity to get ahead if used right. And like Adam talked about, it's about qualifying, it's not about deciding. We've also talked quite a bit about interviews and how they're such a vital part of the hiring process. So conducting thorough and insightful interviews to evaluate candidates effectively and without bias as well is super helpful. We also talked about establishing a uniform interview process across all locations. This approach really ensures consistency in evaluating candidates and helps in hiring top talents regardless of the geographical differences. And then lastly, we talked about prioritizing interview processes for both candidates and the hiring team as a crucial aspect. By focusing on creating a really positive experience for candidates and providing support and training for the hiring team, organizations can really enhance hiring outcomes and overall recruitment effectiveness. So we went through a lot here. We're about to open it up for a little bit of a Q&A, but I do want to point out we have a QR code on the screen where you can go ahead and download an advanced copy of the exclusive interview checklist, as well as extended communication templates that are available to only registrants of this event. So we're really excited to offer that to you. If you don't have your phone handy, or if you're like me, you're like, well, I got it on my phone. Now, how do I get it on my computer? We are going to send that out in the email recap after. You'll get the recording, the deck. You'll also get those exclusive resources in your recap. Let's go ahead and go through questions then. We did get a good one right at the beginning. So Dawn, hopefully you are still here and your patience is about to pay off. But Dawn asked a pretty broad question. I thought it'd be a good conversation for us to have. It says, what is considered a great workplace culture these days? I'll let anyone else presenting here speak up as well, but it's a really good question. And I think it depends a lot on your business. I don't want to like cop out and be like, well, it depends on you, but oh, Dawn is still here. Thank you, Dawn. I was thinking about it during the event, and I feel like no matter if you're hiring a housekeeper or a service technician or an RN, I think it's openness to communicate and flexibility. You know, not everyone values a happy hour. Not everyone values a company party, but I think everyone values the human element of, oh, your child is sick. Okay, no problem. Your car broke down, whatever happened. Of course, with, you know, a good hiring standard in the background and a good outlook on like their standing as a business. But I think all of those, like, again, anyone else can chime in here, but like that's what's coming to me as good culture is the human element and the understanding and flexibility. You can't offer work from home. You can't offer a 4-day work week because, you know, the cars need to be fixed 7 days a week, whatever the case may be. It's that flexibility and setting the standard for open communication is, in my book, the best culture. But anyone else want to chime in on that, you're welcome to.
I can add, Kiki. I also think it's like, you know, it's all employees are different, right? So what they're looking for is going to vary, like Kiki mentioned, but it's really, it could be about maybe you have a really inclusive environment, or maybe there's really great professional growth opportunities that your organization offers. So that can really foster a really amazing culture through that training or mentorship program, anything that you really want to highlight. So maybe it's either also recognition or appreciation that you give to your employees, things like that.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think it all depends on the age group of your employees too, and who you're really trying to engage with. If you're looking for younger, more entry level individuals to come join your organization, their overview and outlook on culture is going to be a little bit different than someone who's a little bit later in their career, a little bit more established. And I know it's walking a fine line of trying to make sure that you have a cohesive culture, but within job descriptions and things like those, consider those pieces when you're starting to really highlight your company culture and how you can attract people of all age groups, and it's really going to resonate with them.
Yeah, that's a great point. Cool. I do see that Elaine noted that she didn't quite get that QR code, so I'm going to put that screen back up so everyone gets another opportunity to download that there. But again, you will get that in your recap email too. But we got another question here. It says, would you recommend only scheduling one interview instead of two? We start with a telephone interview, and then if we feel the candidate is a good fit for our role, we schedule an in-person interview. Honestly, I think that's great. I think you can screen out a lot of people on that phone interview too. Obviously, that does extend your time to hire. Like, for example, the Opal collection, our customer we were speaking to here, I know they do typically one interview, and if it's going well, they'll actually have a second interview right on the spot. So they can be like, okay, you interviewed with Cody, now you're going to interview with Julie, and they kind of get it all done at the same time.
That doesn't work for every role. And like a more traditional role, I do think a phone interview and then an in-person does make sense. You don't want to waste the candidate's time or your hiring manager's time if the person is completely not a fit. But you want to be pretty nimble when you're scheduling that second interview. Get creative with timing. Have your hiring managers maybe block out typical times, like a weekly interview slot that you can fill if you're the one kind of filling in for other people. I think that could really help in streamlining and making sure things are still moving pretty quickly. That's all the questions I've gotten so far, and we are almost at time here. So we'll give it just one more moment. If anyone else is furiously typing a question, you are still welcome to enter it, and we'll answer it live. Otherwise, if you're looking for support and resources, again, you will get this deck with the recording, but you also have a ton of support with Hireology always. If you have a customer success manager, you should be able to reach out to them directly. We also have the excellent customer care team that there is there to back you up as well. So don't be shy to raise your hand, say like, hey, I learned about XYZ and I want to like go through it in my specific account for my example and see if we can fine tune it and make it really work for your business. But looks like no other questions are coming in, so we can go ahead and wrap up. Thank you everyone for your time, your attention, and your engagement. Don't be shy if you have any other questions that come up, and look for that recap email coming shortly. Thank you.